This is Recruitment Agency Ignition with Andy Whitehead. Helping you build your recruitment employment business fast. Using digital and automation and one-to-many systems, tools, and inbound strategies.
Well, welcome to this week's Inner Circle Call. So today is a hot seat after, essentially some badgering from you guys. I've unknowingly spoken about Trevor a couple of times, well, more than a couple of times in previous sessions, and we've had quite a few of you contact us and say, "Hey, can you connect me with Trevor, or can we hear more about what Trevor's done, etc., etc., etc." So rather than Trevor be approached 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times with the same questions, we're going to hold a hot seat. And what Trevor's done is two things which are outstanding. Number one, in fact, take a step back first of all. The thing I love about Trevor is not only he's got a massive opportunity in front of him, which we'll come to in a second, but it's his mindset. So, for example, Trevor's approach is, I'm going to take this one part of my business and absolutely nail it. I'm going to leave all the shiny stuff. I'm going to nail this. I'm going to nail this part of it. So this strategy, I'm going to nail it. So it's absolutely running like clockwork. Then I'm going to move on to the next pillar, etc. So rather than implement 3, 4, 5 things at one time, and we do something at 30, 40, 50%, he's taking one element and he's absolutely killing it. In this instance, he is going to share with you two cool things he's doing. One is essentially around some use of automation, and second is his use of VAs. So the hot seat is going to be a really warts and all from Trevor himself. So when Trevor and I first spoke, there was real excitement on my part because he's got a huge opportunity. One side of his business is set up really well, which is this side. The second side needs to be implemented and needs to get working in a similar vein. But today, what we're going to do is focus on what Trevor's done in terms of the candidate side and the VA side and the automation side. Now, just quick heads up, guys. Coming in the next 4 weeks, we have got hands-on sessions whereby we are going to be building certain components into your authority marketing and your authority tools. So, Trevor, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Hey, Trevor, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, good. Let's do it then, Trevor. So, probably as we briefly laid out before, probably the best way to do this is break this down to two sections, really. Just to make it something that can be almost reproduced in understanding. So from everyone else on the course, so they can just process it in a nice, simple way. So what we'll do, if it's cool with you, Trevor, is first of all, let's have a bit of background, who you are, your background in recruitment, your business. Then maybe go into what was happening before you took the bull by the horns and you started to implement the use of VA, started to implement the use of automation this way. Just so, first of all, who you are, your business, and then perhaps move into what was happening in the business in the old days as such. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been doing recruitment now. I think it's since 2008, right around the beginning of 2008. I work solely in the healthcare space, and I think knowing what I did before is really important. Which I was in the mortgage industry for 15 years, and then. I don't know if everyone heard about the meltdown in 2008 or not, but that wiped out my business. You guys might have heard about it. And I really found I needed to find something new. My brother was in healthcare recruitment, and I asked him how much he earned, and that kind of got my attention. My wife is a nurse practitioner, so that also helped with the transition, knowing what kind of jobs to seek out. But I think why that was important in my transition is that when I was in mortgages, I looked at myself that I used to sell money to people. And when I came into healthcare, I kind of took the attitude that, well, now what's my product that I'm selling? And really it was jobs.
Yep.
And I took more of a marketing approach. And I think the other recruiters that I knew, I don't know if they were really looking at it from that aspect. But that's kind of what my approach has been. And really, your double R campaign, I think I was kind of doing. That was kind of my marketing view, which is what attracted me to joining the Inner Circle and just seeing what your views are on marketing to many and learning different concepts other than just the double R concept.
Cool. So your background then was in the mortgage industry. You've almost taken a product mindset to what you actually deliver to your clients and candidates. So, well, your clients in this case, so you deliver on actual jobs. To help the transition, your brother's actually from a recruitment background. Your wife's got in healthcare. Brought the two together. Bang! I'm going to go into this marketplace. Simple as that. Was it?
Yep, that's it.
Awesome. So in terms of when you started, so 2008 you started your business. If you think about when you started using the VAs and the automation build, the candidate side, which we'll focus on today, what was happening before the use of VAs? What was happening before the use of automation? What were the key frustrations, or what was happening in the daily grind that made you think there's got to be a smarter way than this?
Well, when I first started out, I was much more reactionary to jobs rather than being proactive. So the process would come in, a job order would come in, and then I would start building a list to market to myself, and then I would go through primarily an e-marketing campaign to that list. Yeah. So generally it would take me probably 2 or 3 days to build that list, and then I would start marketing. And sometimes, most of the jobs that I'm in, there are several other recruiters working, so I would lose time in that spot. And so I started, as my business evolved, I started thinking, why not be proactive? In my healthcare space, I always need critical care nurses. There's certain positions that you're always going to need. And so that's when I kind of started getting into the thought of adding some staff and helping to basically doing that sourcing piece for me.
Yeah. So the challenge before then was you were going through a process whereby the role would come in, and as you say, that the key pain point, it was slow. So the role would come in, then we go out we drop what we're doing, we go out looking for candidates, and your mindset was, right, in the marketplace, there's X amount of candidates. If I've got all those X amount of candidates in a barrel, it's like fish in a barrel, I can pick them out as and when I need them with the right marketing, et cetera, et cetera. That's the sort of mindset and what drove you to get that transition in terms of automation, built the data set. Is that correct? And from the staff side, it was very much a case of, well, you can't do it all. You're a business owner, you're a business owner, not a business doer, is what we really want to get towards. So what year was this now, Trevor, where you started the business? So if we had a timeline as such, and we had 2008, and we've got 2017, at what point did you go, you know what, I need to start getting the database built, or I need to start using automation, I need to start using VAs? When did that sort of happen in terms of the timeline? When did the light bulb go off?
Well, the automation started coming in, I want to probably say maybe 2010, 2011.
Yep.
Was the first form of it. And
nice.
What I would utilize there is I was still reactionary, I would say, because the job order would come in, and I mean, the tool that I use to build my marketing lists.
Yep.
And so I then had one person who was US based and is still with me, who a job order would come in for ICU nurses, intensive care nurses, and I would say, okay, go get me intensive care nurses. And then maybe a day later now I would have an intensive care nurse list to add to my current list.
Yep.
And then we would go out and market them. I would say about 3 years ago now, maybe 3.5, so where that puts us back, so around 2013, 2014, somewhere in that range.
Yep.
That's when I started using my VAs.
Yep.
And so what I started to do is I would just put in keywords and I would be dumping entire searches into a group and then to marketing to them.
Yep.
Sometimes not even looking at the resumes, which was a really low accuracy. And it was just kind of like fire everything against the wall and see what came back. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's really how I would do it. It was just about go, 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 and try to get action coming in. And I mean, it worked to an extent, but I think the difference was then what kind of came on, my light bulb came on, as I said, why not just do searches for all new registered nurses every week and have a group of people eyeballing the resumes and then putting them into a group. So where my accuracy was probably only 30 or 35% using keyword search, by now having live people look at the resumes, my accuracy now is probably somewhere around 80 to 90%.
Got it. Got it.
And so that kind of became a little bit of a game changer in 2013 because now what we're just doing is we're just searching for all nurses, and I have 3 virtual assistants that get a work group per week, and they're just going through all of those resumes, which are typically around a total of about 1,000 a week.
Awesome.
Let's 3 VAs are knocking out.
Let's do this. Use some terminology here, which I think would be used to explain to everyone what you mean. So what do you mean by a work group? What do you mean by a list? Just give some context around what those are, just so everyone's clear on what we're actually dealing with. So what's a work group? Okay. What's a list? What's a live review, etc.?
So, all right. So the list is just going to and typing in keywords for a particular job that I need. So if it's an ICU nurse, I might have 5 or 6 keywords that would be common on a resume.
Yep.
So we'd put those keywords in, we'd get a list back, and then I would just dump them when I call it into my ICU group. That's within my database.
Got it.
So, and I wasn't even viewing those resumes. So now what's changed is the VAs are actually, so we'll pull out like maybe 1,000 resumes a week, and I'll divvy up a work group. So 300 or 400 resumes will get into each individual VA is what I call their work group.
Got it. And what's the definition of a work group?
Just that, I know, that's just what we call it in my database. So in my database, I will just evenly divide our 1,000 resumes over our 3 VAs, and I'll just blindly dump those 300 to 400 per VA into what I call their quote work group. They will then actually go to that work group, and then they will start live looking. They will actually eyeball every single resume and put them into the correct group.
Got it. Okay, got it. Let's do this then. So you've got a process now. You're bringing in 1,000 resumes per week. Now, just want everyone on the call to get some context. So if you're in a marketplace, you're going, yeah, but Andy, in my marketplace there's only 10,000 candidates, or in my marketplace there's only there's 500 in each, and I've only got 10 niches, or whatever it might be. So I don't need a volume strategy. The principle is this, guys. The principle is this. What Trevor said right at the start was, if a role comes in, and then we have to drop what we're doing, we have to go out and proactively look for candidates online, we've then got a lag time of half a day, 2 days, 3 days. We're actually going out to look. If they're in our database, then they're actually in front of us now, and we can use strategies to engage with them immediately. So no matter where you are, the strategy and the principle of having all of your, or as much as possible, as many as possible of your candidates in your database is relevant to every single one of you, no matter what marketplace you're in. No matter what marketplace you're in. So if you're using LinkedIn, for example, I've got 30,000 contacts on LinkedIn. Yeah, how does LinkedIn work for you when you send an email or a message, etc.? So we want to have this offline database, and this is what Trevor's done really, really well. So first of all, just get that mindset that if we can have as many candidates and all clients in our database offline, we can then actually, almost like a fish in a barrel, go out and extract them as and when we want them. So the principle applies to all of you. Trevor, I think it might be of use to do the following. If you think it makes sense also, and sort of laying out in a 5-year-old terms what you're doing. Maybe first off, going through the structure of your VA team, so how it's structured, how you manage them, how you lay out the work, how you manage the work, etc. And we go through a set of steps there, what that actually looks like. Then secondly, actually going step by step on how you actually use the tool, and how you actually get the 1,000 per week coming in. Do you think that makes sense?
Sure. Yeah. And if there's some value to it, I can also talk a little bit about how I hired them and started them as well.
That'd be incredibly useful. So let's do this then. If we go through part 1, let's focus on the VAs, and let's start at the beginning. Hiring process right the way through to management implementation. Now, so yeah, you've got the floor. Over to you. So right from the start, that'd be awesome, Trevor. Any questions, guys? Just put capital Q in the chat box.
So the first thing I looked at when I was going to hire the VAs, I purposely overhired. And the reason I did that, I figured I would need somewhere, probably about 3 VAs is where I thought I would need wind up going. So I think originally I hired six the VAs. And the big reason I did that is I could train all of the people at the same time. Rather than hiring one, training, fail, next, it's like I've wasted time. So by over-hiring, knowing that some of them are going to fail, I could then just do my training session one time with everybody and see how they went. So I think that was important to do. And I also think that when you're hiring your VAs, I would recommend doing it, just telling them it's on a temporary basis. Say this is going to be a temporary 2-week trial system, so then they don't have an expectation that it's a full-time position. And then the ones that you really like, you can say, okay, I'm going to hire you full-time into it. So that was the first thing that I did. And and I also planned on putting time into it. I mean, when you first get into it, I mean, it's uncomfortable and it takes time, and you have to plan to teach them and train them by having a set amount of your goals, having metrics for them, and I had kind of a little syllabus on how I was going to train them and go through them. So I think that's an important aspect on hiring them. So now kind of what my process is moving forward after I've hired and trained them. And really what the training came down to is just looking at resumes and being able to identify what those candidates do. What I told them is I really need you to focus on what the person's done for the last 2 years. So for my industry, it's pretty simple. I mean, you're either an ICU nurse or you're not. You're either an emergency room nurse or you're not. So I would just tell them to focus on looking at keywords, what they've done the last 2 years, and assign them into the particular group. Now, what I did to quality control them in the beginning, I had one US-based person that creates the list. And so what I did to quality control them is we would pull 10% of the resumes that the VAs did per week. And then, so if they did 300, you'd pull 30 resumes for them. And my expectation, I think at the beginning, I can't remember if I said it was 80 or 90%. So they need to be 80 or 90% accurate on that. And then I then tied that into a bonus for the VA. So if they needed to work a minimum of 30 hours. I also physically reviewed resumes myself to come up with the metric saying, what's my expectation of how many resumes they should be doing per hour? And so I came up with a number at the time. I think it was like 10 or 11 resumes an hour was kind of my expectation. So if they maintained an 80% accuracy rate and did 10 to 11 resumes per hour, worked a minimum of 30 hours a week, then they would get a $25 a week bonus, which sounds so little to anyone here, but trust me, to the VAs, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. What did you say that bonus was? Sorry, Trevor, what did you say it was?
I pay them $25 a week. That's
the bonus, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm paying them $3 an hour.
Cool.
Just when we first started, that was my pay structure with them, and that was the bonus side. So the person would go through and kind of QC just to make sure that that's there. So I've gone from before, when I was just creating these lists, my accuracy was 30 to 35%. So to be up now at 80 or 85% accuracy that I'm marketing to is a big shift change. It helped quite a bit.
Discover how to build your recruitment employment agency using one-to-many automation and inbound strategies before anyone else in your market specialization. Check out recruitmentmarketinginternational.com.